The Rock comments on the XFL's decision to pass on New York. So, in a candid moment with a heartbroken fan, Dwayne The Rock Johnson took to social media to explain why the New York Guardians weren't returning to the XFL reboot in 2023. Unless you've been living under a Dwayne Johnson. This is, of course, Mike Mitchell wrote this. Just want to point that out. That was not my joke. It's been public knowledge since earlier this year that the latest iteration of the XFL would not have the New York Guardians returning, or LA for that matter. 3 XFL cities from 2020 are gone: New York, Tampa, and Los Angeles. And in their place are Orlando, Vegas, and San Antonio. Mike Mitchell, of course, reported on this a long, long time ago. Despite the reports here on XFL News Hub, many XFL 2020 devotees were in denial or dismissive of the idea that New York in particular would return to the league. However, Guardians loyalists got hit with reality when the XFL officially announced their cities on July 24th, 2020. 2. New York has now 100% confirmed out by the XFL. 3 months later, on Halloween, after much debate and accidental website leak by the league, the XFL released its team names and logos for the 8 cities: Arlington Renegades, Houston Roughnecks, San Antonio Battlehawks, DC Defenders, Seattle Sea Dragons, Vegas Vipers, San Antonio Brahmas, and Guardians of Orlando. That's right, Guardians. Gotham's Gargoyle is gone. Neon, and like most lifelong New Yorkers, has retired in Florida. That is a good one. That is a good one. The New York Guardians in 2020 had a contending team and a passionate fan base and drew good ratings in the country's biggest TV market. On Fox, New York's game with Tampa on February 9th, 2020 was the high water mark for XFL viewership 2 years ago. It wasn't the league's opening game on ABC, which typically produces the highest sample audience of these type of entities. The Sunday afternoon, Guardians Vipers averaged a 2.1 rating, 3.39 million viewers, the largest audience for a non-NFL football game since Week 6 of the original XFL in 2001, 3.67 million. However, ratings aside, Guardians' attendance were modest at best. In only 2 games, New York averaged 14,875 fans per game, second to last in the XFL in 2020, only ahead of LA. Do you see a correlation, my friends? The 14,000 average is a decent number for a brand new team in an upstart league with largely unknown players, especially considering the drawback of bitter cold Northeast weather in February, agreed. But the ominous confines of MetLife Stadium, which seats 82,000, made Guardian fans an eyesore for the XFL. It provided a poor visual representation to the mainstream sports audience who's sampling the league. There's no doubt that the XFL has made the incorrect choice of playing at MetLife, an overriding decision that came from then XFL owner Vince McMahon. So Vince wanted in New York, and no matter what. Some naysayers certainly believe it was foolhardily to lure tri-state area football fans to embrace a non-NFL product. The lack of attendance helped fuel their beliefs. Notwithstanding all that, there was hope that the New York Guardians would find a new playing home in the future seasons, but the task of accomplishing that was easier said than done, and the economics of fielding the biggest of the big city teams was certainly a deterrent for the league's new ownership group headed by Jerry Cardinale, Redbird Capital Partners, Danny Garcia, and Dwayne Johnson. In an exchange on Twitter, the New York Guardians fans Eric Francisco, The Rock, revealed the reasoning behind the XFL not taking up shop in New York in 2023. Dwayne Johnson cited economic and stadium issues as why New York wasn't chosen for the reboot, but he promised that the XFL would revisit New York down the road. Eric wrote, devastating. The New York Guardians didn't survive the Rock's reboot of the XFL. Inspired by the gargoyles and Gothic architecture, they had a tough but clean look and made them like a team from Batman's Gotham City. I was so excited for them in 2020 while missed. DJ says, me too, brother. Trust me, we tried so hard to keep our New York team. I started my career in New York, so I'm a big advocate. Economics plus, we had a real challenge finding a proper home stadium for our hardworking, passionate players. We'll revisit it down the road 100%. So the door might be open for XFL expansion into New York in the future, but it has closed for the New York Guardians forever, with Orlando adopting the brand of its own. Still did not adopt the color scheme, so that could be something to keep a light out there. So New York Guardians, at least Dwayne Johnson kind of gave you an idea, and it's something that we've talked about too with LA and New York. It's economics. It is expensive to run franchises in those cities when you're trying to start off. Hub in Texas, Having 3 teams in Texas makes sense to keep the costs down, the travel. Just ask the NFL how they plan on doing NFL Europe. The question is, what are we going to do about the Vegas Vipers? Is another thing. But now at least you understand why New York, but the door is not closed. So you could still follow the league, still wear your merch. Your team is now the DC Defenders. So I've given you all New Yorkers can now come on. All those 14,000 folks can now come and be a DC Defenders fan. But the door is not closed for all these cities that eventually they might have an XFL team.